Hi, a very good morning. Thank you for spending time with us on your Sunday. And today, so welcome to the first session in a three-part series where today's topic is very interesting. So invite your friends if they are not yet online, where today's topic is screen time seduction. Do you know what they are doing? And before we delve into it, let me introduce you my amazing panelists. So we start with Dr. JIOW, who is an associate professor with SIT, Singapore Institute of Technology.
Yeah.
And then we move on to who is a friend of mine, and it's great to have reconnected after 20 years.
And I'm the only dad here in mom's space.
Which is going to give a very interesting perspective. So wonderful, G. Thank you for taking time. And so on that note, right, viewers, if you've got any questions, please type them in, okay, throughout. And then next would be Pauline, a familiar face. So Pauline PHOON is the founder of two communities. One would be Comeback, the other one is SOOS. And her heart and informing the gaming community, which is very interesting, and I think why a lot of parents are doing the same too, is to get into the psyche of our youth, right? And finally, a very, very familiar face, Carol Loy is the founder of Village Consultancy, and she specializes in a lot of topics, okay? Porn would be one of them. You also have Brain Defense, which is for children 9 to 12 years old, and she's a parenting coach, yeah? So a round of applause for a very interesting set of panelists. And with that, right, I want to talk about screen time. It is such a hot topic. I mean, even before COVID, right? I mean, when we were growing up, we were what I call digital migrants, right? We grew up with just the TV screen. But today, at 2 years old, kids actually use the screen to be babysitted. And especially with COVID, locked within 4 walls, nothing to do. I think the addiction or the concern is heightened. So let's talk about the accessibility of screen, yeah? So, G, are there media guidelines, right, for a healthy screen time? What's the recommendation?
Okay, so this is a common question I get frequently. So when we talk about screen time, obviously the first thing that comes into mind is the time spent, right? So there are guidelines. I mean, American Psychological Association does have guidelines, you know, for 24 months and below that you should have high quality, trying to avoid screen time as much as possible, but as well as have high quality. If you can't have that, then 2 to 5 years old, they recommend like 1 hour a day max and things like that. And then for 6 years old and above, they just recommend that, you know, you just make sure that there are time limits set. There are other concerns such as, you know, like eyesight. So you won't be surprised to hear eye specialists coming up and saying that, you know, 20 minutes of screen time, then you should take a break and stuff like that. But you know what? In my recent study where I studied, I asked about parents, how they manage their children, especially during circuit breaker the last time. And, you know, with all these guidelines that they are aware of, they are also saying that, you know, no choice lah, you know, I work from home, my kids have to study and sometimes they have to do their own research. So while they understand the guidelines, you know, sometimes they are saying that there are certain compromises need to be made. Okay, so parents are typically more concerned when it comes to recreational use, okay? So either video games, watch YouTube videos and all that. But they typically have no limits when it comes to studies lah. Yeah. What about y'all? What do y'all think? You all experience that also?
Yeah, I think what you say is very, very true. I think often now we are more caught up with the time spent, but the quality, like what am I doing? Am I interacting with my friend? Am I studying? Or am I, like what you say, doing recreation? And what kind of recreation, right? And then it subdivides more. So moving on to Pauline, right? Just wanted to hear from you. You advocate kids playing games. Why is that? And can you share?
I think it's playing. Okay, so kids play, and why is playing so important? Talk about play therapy, talk about the benefits of playing. Social, you learn communication, you learn so many skills on it, you know. So it's just being very intentional in how they play. I think that's the part that we advocate. How? Okay, it's not about playing in general, but we are very intentional in how we use it.
Understand, which is interesting because I think a lot of parents come from like, don't play too much video games, spend the time on studies. Yeah.
I think it's both, because if you look at playing, they also learn certain skills, you know, decision making. they're split second, no? So you realize that there are studies that shows that video games also develop the prefrontal cortex. So it depends on how you play it and how it's utilized. So it's not just about playing, but it does develop. So I think a little shift that entertainment can also help development.
And I think the truth is, during our time, we used to play probably 5 stone catching, but now the definition of play is really, it's shifted online. So actually our kids haven't done are actually exactly the same as us, except that the play space has shifted online.
Yeah. Playground has changed.
Yes, playground is no longer just physical, right?
Evolved.
It's evolved online. And I don't just think playground, but even social, right? Like I remember I used to have pen pal, you know, like really write letter and really call people on the phone. Now no more pen pal. Now it's like instant text messages and like.
Always say 拨电话做, always on the phone.
Yes.
Now they chat lah.
And on the phone, right? I mean, to be honest, my mom used to eavesdrop. So we've got 2 phones, and I know, you know, because then I can hear the click on the other side, and then I know she's listening above, and then I'll get very upset. So now to you, right, Carol? I think the reality is a lot of parents are, even if you have your own phone, they tend to scroll through the history, the chat, just to check. And it comes from a good space to want to protect our children. And yet the backlash is kids are like, invasion of privacy, right? So what do you have to say about this?
Yeah, so it really comes from a place where the parents are really loving their children, right? How do they do that? How do they lovingly guide their children to have healthy gaming? I think I totally agree. I'm also a mother of 19 and 16-year-olds, girls, and they are gaming. But I find that they are doing that as socialization. There is socialization that takes place. There is brain development that takes place. I think from a parent's perspective, what most parents want is a balanced life for their children. How do we make sure that, yes, they can play games? Are the games that they play healthy? Because there are games and there are games. There are some games that are more violent. And what's different from playground? Just now we were talking about children playing in the playground. I think in a physical playground, parents can see who the kids are playing with, right? Whether is it an adult that's coming to play with the kids. Whereas in the online space, I think that is not so obvious. And I think it's very real in terms of parents' concern about who their children are playing with. Do the children even know who they are playing with? And do they have those interpersonal skills to be able to discern? I think those are the very real concerns that parents have. And that comes forth with, oh, I don't know what they're doing. You know, I better don't let you play this so much. So I think having a better understanding of what the children are doing, what kind of games they are playing, who they are playing with, and when there's an open conversation with the children on that, I think that helps. It helps the parents to feel safer, that the children are safe playing, and from the kids, the parents don't bug them so much. And I think it helps the relationship.
Wonderful. And I'm just wondering, how do we manage that tension? Because like what you brought up, right? Even when we go to the playground, there will always be a bit more protective parent. Careful, you know, and a bit more chill, right? So it's the entire spectrum. Okay, you fall down already. Okay, just don't hit someone else, you know? So, and transferring them online even, right? How do we, especially for the protective parents, right? How do we shift that mindset so that they begin to invest on the quality of conversations instead of secretly checking?
Yeah, can I defer that conversation to a gaming father?
I think arrow.
Because I think hearing from a father who plays games and then how he plays games with his children, I think that helps also. If it's okay.
Yeah, sure. I knew that was coming somehow. No, I think I also want to pick up something that you mentioned just now about children owning their phones and then scrolling and things like that. I think one of the things that I've always advocated was the distinction between ownership and usage. So typically for young children, at least in some of my encounters, was parents will lend them kind of like a spare phone just to get them accustomed to the usage of the phone and slowly build their usage up. And in that way, the parents can also journey with them in their digital experiences. Okay, so this is what I did. You know, when I passed my child a spare phone, and then sometimes they say, "Oh, Daddy, can you pick me up after my CCA or something like that?" And then I'll pick up and then pass back the phone now. So they understand that it wasn't total ownership but usage. And then from then on, you slowly build, and then you help the child understand some of the values associated with the phone usage. So regarding gaming, so was it this year I decided, okay, finally I bought a Switch for my family to use. But then I shared certain ground rules and I started playing with them. Some of the games really get me, especially the first-person shooter kind of format gets me giddy, but I'm learning to play with them and things like that. And I think one of the things that I kind of communicated across was that, even when you lose in games, it's okay, it's just for the fun of it and things like that. So that's how I dealt with slowly transitioning my family into healthy gaming.
Yeah, so co-playing is important.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, so doing this together with the children, especially when they are young, so they're observing, how we are doing this, what kind of boundaries we set for ourselves. And then slowly as the children grow older, I think the boundaries will change. So a child development perspective to this aspect about managing screen is so important. Similar to what you were sharing about the guidelines, those are really based on the child development perspective. When do we introduce what kind of games, how much screen time is really dependent on the maturity of the child.
Wonderful. And I love what you're sharing, right? Because I think what comes to play is the co-parenting style. So for me, there is a newfound appreciation for my husband because I don't like games, right? I'm more an IT laggard almost. I still go supermarket, that kind, to do my grocery shopping. He's the one who will, come, we need to top up another $50 to get don't know how many % discount, that kind. But I think in what you're saying, right, is for either parent or if not both, to share that space and to inculcate values as they are gaming, right? To share hey, so you lose, huh? And maybe initially they throw a tantrum, but then to open that as an opportunity to talk about sportsmanship is what I'm hearing. Right?
Yeah, I think in the gaming scene also, there's this tendency, especially when you play in communities, they will talk down on you and things like
Trash
that, right?
talk.
Yeah, they will trash talk, right? So I guess, and sometimes if you see that happening, you try and stop it in my family setting and things like that. Now, don't put one another down. We're just there playing for fun and things like that. And I think that when you build that experience with the child, by playing together with the child, it helps the child in future as well.
Wonderful. What I'm hearing is you are role modeling, like, let's not do that. And as we do it enough times, they then become the voice, right? Your echo in just repeating that. So I think that's wonderful.
If I could jump in to say that, I think we're talking about online gaming, but there are many different ways to game. It's not just online gaming that families can do together where they can learn social skills and role modeling. I think there are also other games that are interesting, exciting board games also that we can play. Recently, because my daughter is 16, my O-level, and in order to promote her Chinese, my family started to play mahjong together.
Wonderful.
Then I realized that actually it's such a great way to like take them off screen and it's something social, and they still play like games, online games, and they play online mahjong, and then realize that it's actually not as fun as in-person. These kind of games where it's more social, more fun. We can see each other's body language and the things that we say can be quite funny. And so now we say next time when you go on dates, next time your boyfriend must play mahjong with us.
And I really love that because it's so experiential, right?
Yeah.
Everybody wants to win, and
see
then the
their
true
character.
colors come out.
Correct.
Yes, you see the competitiveness.
See whether they bang the thing.
Please table.
Or cheat or not, that kind.
But
or give
there's
in.
many other games.
Yes.
Yeah. My point is that the face-to-face gaming experience could be also important to give our children a more diverse way of like, hey, there are other fun things to do in life.
Wonderful. And if I were to bring this right to the next level, because I think our kids today, when we were younger, we were a lot more obedient. So I want to talk about the topic of authority, because I think a lot of children today are challenging the parents' authority because on the screen, I'm exposed to so many things that my parents may not be, whether it's games, whether it's information. So there's that generational gap, right? So JIOW, I want to ask you, right? There's so much outside influence, right? What our kids are looking at, and the internet seems to be their default feature. So what's your opinion, right? Especially if parents are not kept updated, how do parents earn that authority?
Okay, I'm not sure if you're referring to authority as in tech authority. So in a sense,
parental authority, like I tell them no, or this, avoid this, and then they don't listen.
Okay, so something I've always advocated is for parents to actually know some measure of tech, understand social media and all that. And in fact, if parents are not able to understand, why not ask a child? Go ahead and ask a child, hey, what are you doing on social media? What is it like? What are the affordances and all that? In fact, in a study that I did some time back, I realized that non-tech savvy parents and versus tech savvy parents, there's no difference in terms of the parental effectiveness as well with regards to tech space. So for parents who may not be tech savvy, they are always able to go and ask the child what's happening and things like that. And I think that builds up relationship also. For some parents, they will ask their nephews and nieces around the same age just to understand the culture, what's in it, what's TikTok, what's Snapchat, what's things like that, and what are the affordances. Then in that way you understand the tech space a little bit better, and you may be able to engage your child a bit better in that.
I so love the results of your research because it's not about how much knowledge I have, but I think the focus is on the quality of the relationship between parent and child. So if I don't know, just openly ask. If I know, then share or influence. So, but either way, it doesn't matter. And I think it's the curiosity of the parents to be involved in the child's life instead of expecting that, nope, you should do only this.
Yeah, you're right. And just recently, I mean, I started on Instagram. Actually, I started a long time ago, but it's just been dormant. I started because my daughter was starting, so I said, okay, first post must be a picture of me and you. So that was something that I instituted for all my kids. Then after that, I realized that, I don't really understand a little bit of this kind of thing. So I went and asked my daughter, hey, how to do this, how to do that, why do you do this and things like that. So they kind of share with me and they teach me how to do it. So I'm getting there,
The next is TikTok.
Yeah, actually the one I'm a little bit more familiar with that already.
Yeah. Wonderful. Actually, I did a TikTok, right? Just for fun, right? Because it's like 30 seconds and all. Yeah. So we had fun, and then I used it as an opportunity to bring the whole family. Yeah. Come, let's do TikTok. They're like, okay, mom. And I think the lessons that I teach, right, is let's go beyond our comfort zone. Because if you know me, I would rather not put my face publicly out. But let's just have fun, Become a clown also, never mind, Let's just have fun, right? And I think whether in the private spaces or public spaces, I think kids see that consistency. Yeah. And Pauline, I want to ask you, right, with regards to authority, right? You created Comeback as an alternative culture, healthy culture for gamers. Do you want to share a bit? How do you speak into their lives?
I think we come from the point of an insider. So the thing is, I don't game. I think a lot of people thought I spend a lot of time gaming. Well, I don't game, simply I don't have the time, okay? I really don't have the time to do it. But my team, all of them are gamers. So it is an insider thing, and they are older than most of them. And they bring the kids together and they start gaming. They become the role model. They model something that is positive. And so it's basically showing the way. If you look at it, right, a lot of this generation, their parents' generation are not in this space. So there's no adult role model, honestly. So what we are doing is creating a peer role model a space where they can see, oh, you don't need to be toxic to have good fun. I think that's the mindset for a lot of the young people. Oh, fun is I need to trash talk, right? Well, I feel good, right? Then we show them, no, don't need. You can still play well and still have very good, satisfying, fulfilling fun at the end of the day. So that's how so it's in a sense a very influential authority. It's not a top-down kind of authority.
Yeah. Wonderful. Yeah. And what I'm hearing is also a peer, like in identification with what you do. Yes. And I think that's critical because a lot of parents tend to blame games, right? Results drop, look for something to blame, right? And then gaming seems to be the easiest, right? So must be game. So
most obvious.
And then cold turkey, so no more game. And then that creates the tension, right? Yeah. Because can you imagine if our parents told us, no more playing, the whole day, no more playing, no more recreation. I think that, the
stress level goes up.
The stress level, and yet, right, we grew up in, and probably we would have kept quiet and said, okay, I mean, the truth is what I talk about in terms of authority is authority models have shifted. From our time, authority is given. I'm your mother, so listen to me because of my position or because of my, it's traditionally the mother is, our father is always the head or the, the heart of the family. Listen. Now kids, no. So Carol, how do we help parents, right, who are struggling with that? Where I tell you no, you say okay, but then I don't have time to manage because I'm busy myself, and after that, I sort of like train you to be able to have access to your gadgets whenever.
Yeah, so I think for busy parents, what works best, I think it's still relationally, persuading them on what is in it for them. How does it benefit them? Why is there boundaries in the home, and how does the boundary benefit them? I think the relational aspects, even for parenting, it is so important. It's no longer, as you said, directional or instructional, but it's more about, hey, let's do this together. Let me ask good questions, right? Instead of telling them that this is right or this is wrong, but use questions to kind of like nudge them towards your family values, right? Why is it important to sleep? It's okay to game, but is it okay to game very late at night, for a very long time? And I'm observing that many children, including mine, they actually play at night because for teenagers, actually the melatonin sets in a little bit later, and so it's natural for them to sleep a little bit later. And sometimes they are like, everybody free at this time, right? Then let's play. Then by the time they play and then they sleep, it's late lah. And so then it's a conversation on, we know that sleep is important. Do you know that sleep is important for you, right? And if you sleep at this time, then what time do you need to wake up in the morning and like work out, talk through, like plan time with the kids? Of course, it's must be developmentally appropriate. If a child is very young, then of course you can be more instructional, right? You need to sleep at this time, let's do this, right? But if the kids are older, I think a more coaching perspective, right? Asking good questions, persuading them. This is what science say, research, Uncle G's research says,
Uncle G.
Yeah, Uncle
okay.
G.
Yeah, and really persuade them to say, oh yeah, actually this is good for me. I get it, and because Daddy and Mommy love you, that's why I'm taking time to explain to you. So that kind of persuading, coaching, mentoring perspective, right? Us being a role model ourselves, while maintaining our authority, that we are doing this out of our care and concern for you, because we know that, it's difficult. I think to recognize that, we talk about media, it is designed for us to spend as much time in it, and to recognize that, to empathize with the kids and say, this is difficult. I am finding it difficult to get on my screen. Let's figure this out together. And it's that togetherness while maintaining authority. I think that is totally possible if we busy parents really be intentional about, doing life together and figuring out the online life together.
I think I agree with you so much. I think it's really the mindset shift, because I think from the traditional form of authority, it's really more top down. I say you don't ask questions. I wrong also, never mind. Just don't ask and just follow, right? But it has since shifted, and yet I think the question is, how do we encourage more parents, instead of assuming, to recognize that earning authority is a skill set that is transferable, whether at work, in society, because I get a lot of practices at home, right? If I can earn the authority, so to speak, as in enroll my children in doing what serves everyone, it's the same set of skills that I can use elsewhere.
I just want to add on, Carol mentioned about relational journey together, and she popped up another R, role modeling. And in my work, I realized that role modeling is important to the children. I hear children saying like, oh, Daddy and Mommy told me not to use my device during mealtime, but then, wow, look, they are using it during meal times and things like that. So actually children do pick up on this kind of things. And I also want to stress what Carol shared just now about role modeling. The children are actually watching you. And I think if you want to earn that so-called authority, then you probably need to also demonstrate it yourself. There was one time I was caught using it, and then I said, oh, sorry, I actually apologized and say, yeah, I shouldn't have done that. And then I apologize for it and say, yeah, this shouldn't have been done. And I think I want to tell the parents that actually it's okay to make mistakes. Just come out and share with them that, it shouldn't have been done and you're trying not to do it again.
I so love what you're saying. I think like whenever we set rules, right, we are not above the rules. For us to remember that instead, if anything, I will set a good example. So even for me, dinner time supposed to have no phones, right? And then I brought my phone there because I was in the middle of something. My daughter almost immediately, Mom, dinner time, no phone. She took it and then put it away. And I was like, thank you so much. So I actually said, thank you so much, you are right. So I think accountability is no longer just top down, but it's across. And I give them the permission, hold me accountable for my actions in case I forget. And so then it's a culture of collaboration, not of nitpicking or pointing out mistakes, but it's really what can we do synergistically. And even Mommy, like what you say, we'll forget, right? So moving on to values, right? If we were to talk about values, I think one of the concerns, right, is how do we teach our children to differentiate what they watch? Because statistics have shown, right, that when we talk about the largest group of internet porn users being kids aged 12 to 17. So how do we differentiate, how do we teach our children to not passively just absorb and take in the subliminal messages, but to actually be able to discern, reject, process, you know, could I learn something from this?
I think when you talk about very young children, right, where they are, I think it was mentioned earlier about developmental stages and all that. Some things are just very difficult to explain to a very young child at that age. So when young, you have to put in safeguards. So for example, if the child needs to use a computer, make sure either use it with you or set certain technological restrictions such that the child does not stumble into some of these content that may not be healthy for the child. And I'm not just talking about pornography, but also violent, because I deal a lot with video games and the parents are concerned about violent content and things like that, or violent videos and things like that. So the idea is when young, you should have some safeguards, technological restrictions, or even physical ones where you hold on to the device and not allow the child. And should the child need it for, I don't know, educational purposes and stuff like that, or some little bit of entertainment, then, you know, do it with the child, surf the net with the child, use the apps or whatever with the child when young. But obviously, as the child grows older, you want to impart those kind of values to the child and find those kind of moments to impart those values. And then you slowly are able to also release, once you're confident that the child understands this, able to release the internet usage or the media usage to the child. So as the child ages, I think you should continue to instill values and slowly release the rules or the restrictions that you have on the child.
Wonderful. What you bring to mind this V-shaped style of parenting, right? When they're younger, the controls at the perimeter is tighter, but as they grow up, we allow the kid or the child to a lot more space to grow for their development.
Yeah.
So wonderful. And you brought up this point about desensitization. So exactly, you know, whether it's just a movie that we watch and then they kill like nobody's business. The recent Squid Game, right? I walked in and then my husband was watching with the kids and it was the scene where it was in the dorm. So there was what looked like blood, but you know, and I was like, what are you allowing the kids to watch? Stop, stop, stop. So immediately stop. All the kids go in, then mommy sit down to just vet through. So then I watch. So Pauline, like in gaming, right? I think one of the things is there's a lot of violence, right? And won't it, after a while, at the back of my mind, it's okay to kill someone or inflict pain on someone else?
Okay, research shows that it's not correlate. There's no correlation between aggression and violent games. Also, if it actually causes, because they already have some predisposition or some underlying conditions already. I think the key part is, I always say, is to process through with the child or the youth. So even with the youth, right, they come and talk to us. Sometimes they'll ask, oh, this game very good, we know that it's super violent. Then we say, oh, okay, what do you like about this? Do you really enjoy it? So it's really going into, say, do you really enjoy it? Or are you doing it simply peer pressure? You know, everyone talks about it's the in thing, right? Like if you play, you are the cool dude, right? If you don't play, you are like some, you know, like some, you're so boring. That kind of thing. Are you doing for image that you're portraying? What are you? Why? I think that's the whole thing. It's processing. It's not about attacking that game. I think always focus not on the thing itself, not the screen, not the device, but the person. And oftentimes after talking to them, they say, actually, I don't really enjoy one. They say, oh, if you don't enjoy, no need play lah, play something else. You know, it's that they come to their own conclusion, and oftentimes they don't enjoy, like very violent one. Then they say you're very gruesome, you know, don't need. So they themselves actually have their judgment, but there is no one to process. That means really ask them these questions, right? That they have to face themselves and put away the peer pressure and the voices and noises and say, okay, I make this decision myself. And they will willingly put it down after that.
I love what you're sharing, right? Because in us just helping them process, they realize I don't have to follow the crowd just because everyone is doing that. And then I think we speak into that individualization of each of them. And thank you for debunking the myth, okay? So not true. It doesn't mean that if they play too much excessive violent games, it necessarily means that.
I think what's important is to give our children alternative aspects to that, right? And so that they see the beauty of being with people, the value of people, then they are better able to decide, actually, that's just entertainment, you know, it's just something that I know that that's not real, because that's not how I should be treating other people. When we give them a diverse, beautiful experience in real life, dealing with real people, right? Giving them exposure to different life experiences, I think that helps them to better differentiate. And when you talk about value inculcation, no game and no app would actually teach the kids about values better than us parents, you know, journeying with our kids through their life, giving them different experience. And no matter how busy we are, I hope, you know, sometimes I find it a struggle as a busy mom, but I think that we need to spend time with our children to build values. I mean, if we just let them, now you're going to play game and then I'm busy, that's very hard. And how do we do that in our very busy life? It could be, for example, just meal time, right? Coming together, as you said just now, no school, no screens, right? I've also like apologized. I'm so sorry. My kids, when they were young, they would say, "Mommy, is that important?"
Oh.
I said, "Yes, you are more important. I'm so sorry." And role modeling apology, you know, if this is a situation that I broke the boundaries, a family boundary that I helped to set, I need to apologize and say, "I'm so sorry that you are really more important. Yeah, I'll put this away." I was
Oh, you know what's the other thing I do? I'll be, you are right. I need to send this. I take the phone, and then I walk away. Let me settle that, and then I come back in in like 30 seconds. So that we honor that family rules or boundaries that we've set.
Yeah, that's right. And I think doing that is so important. So giving them a more complete view of what life is would help them to better discern. Is that game really reflecting what my family value is, and how should I be behaving? I think all those take skills for the children to learn. That takes time.
And I think it's very powerful because it's no longer the father or the mother being just the authority. It's like this is a shared authority where you are responsible for your life. You get to process. So even horror show I don't watch, okay, because I tell them, and I tell them it's madness having to watch a show that after that for days play in my mind, and then I don't have to go toilet alone when I was younger because every time you look at the mirror, you know, it comes, right? So I say it's madness, and I tell them images will continue to linger in our unconscious. So if you want to go and do it, go ahead for the experience, but I have decided it doesn't work for my psyche. I prefer to think about other things. And I think slowly as we begin to just share our experiences without imposing, it's where we create that space for them to decide, let me try, and you know, whatever they would decide. So authority in families are now shared.
Correct. And give them experiences to fail and try, right? I would say, I will tell you, this is my opinion, but if you choose to do that, you might learn the hard way. Yeah, but it's up to you. And then if they really learn the hard way, then they remember, you know, you were given a choice, right? But you chose the hard way, and that's okay. But you learn, right? Then next time you can make better decisions.
And actually, that kind of learning, in my opinion, is a lot more powerful. It actually takes the parent stepping back, and it's the hardest for parents, right? Because if, let's say, when I was a child, my mom, the analogy I would give, right, is there's a hole, there's a pothole. I know you're going to fall in. The instinct of most parents is to rescue our children. But if we say, careful, there's a hole, and I still want, it's like, you know, some children need to try it for themselves and then fall into the hole. This is the analogy I gave my mom. If you come and don't say, I told you so, right? But if you come and lend me a helping hand and say, I'm still here for you. Yes, you fell. That may not change my action, meaning the next time you tell me don't climb, I may still do it, but our relationship would have been so tight because I know you're not just there for me during the good times, but when in my lowest time, where I chose to go against what you advise, you were still there for me. And that acceptance unconditionally is, I think, what a lot of children lack. And that's why they seek alternatives.
So good, I should interview you.
Back to the right. Yeah, no, really. Because
really
I think then it's
so
something that they take out in life for themselves, where I fell already. And then I think the boundary, right, is I dare to allow my children to fail. In fact, I celebrate, I mean, y'all would know, right? Separately, I talk about it. Never fail today. Your life's so boring. You've been playing it so safe. Go and fail. Go and try something new. So, and then we push them out to take ownership for cause and effect, my actions, and then what I do. Yeah. So
we're talking about trying something new. I mean, previously I have interactions with parents and children and all that. And then I asked, why are you playing this game all the time? You say, actually, that's the only thing I know. You know? Whenever I eat last time in food court, my parents always put the the iPad in front of me to entertain me and things. So I grew up just knowing that's the only thing. So I think there's a place for parents to actually expose children to other things. So that's what I try to do. I remember during circuit breaker, where my child was texting her friend, no choice, cannot go out, right? I said, I teach you something new, okay? You pick up this thing called a phone. You dial, okay? You dial, and then you can speak to your friend, no? Can you try, you know? So I insisted my daughter do that instead of always texting. I'm not, you know, texting is the in thing for the kids this day, but I'm trying to give her an alternative. So pushing her to try new things. And during the circuit breaker, we tried board games, other form of games instead of just like what Carol did, you know, mahjong and all that. We played Singaporean Dream, we played chess, we played Chinese chess and things like that. Chinese chess doesn't really help in the learning Chinese, but we just played it.
It helps in strategic thinking.
Other areas.
And that was so fun, right? Like we also played like treasure hunt within the house. And I think what it became fun, you know, cannot go. But what became fun is they begin to create their own. So after I create the first, right, after I'm busy, right, then they entertain themselves. So the onus is on you. If you are bored, you go and find something to occupy yourself. And I'm fine with boredom. I think it's wonderful space for creativity. So then they will play their own game. They even made, what's that game? That very famous one? YouTube, or you know that thing that
Among Us.
Among Us. You know what they did? Instead of just playing Among Us, right? I said no, screen time over already. They played the Among Us, so they will set up different stations. Okay, now this, and then one of them is and then they physically reenacted Among Us within the home, and then you have to go to the bedroom and don't know where lah. And that was how I got to know about Among Us.
And then after that, you can teach them housekeeping.
Actually, they already do household work.
Okay.
I make them do because easier lah. Five helpers, you know. So wonderful. I love what you're sharing in that, right? So in values, right? I think I want to bring this conversation to something a bit more serious. Porn, right? I think when we talk about porn, the messages, it glorifies sex, and in real life never like that one, right? You know, and it objectifies a woman's body. So there's no more messages of honor and respect, right? So Carol, how do you instill those positive messages?
So I think it first have to do with conversations on values. I run sessions for 9 to 12, as you mentioned just now, brain defense. It's a curriculum that's suitable for 9 to 12-year-olds, and we introduce them to first, instead of just jumping into inappropriate content, in particular pornography, we talk about how do you protect your brain. We actually start from that level because kids are, you know, they like to first start from self, right? So how do you protect your brain? You know, the brain has got the feeling brain and the thinking brain, you know, and we want to protect our thinking brain because that's the part that helps us to focus, that helps us to make good decisions, right? And but then if you see certain things that are inappropriate, like pornography, and then we introduce to them what pornography is. And for 9 to 12-year-old, we define pornography as, you know, pictures or videos or even cartoons of people's private parts that's meant to be covered under the swimsuit. So nothing explicit, not really about sexuality, but really just saying that this is private parts, and we want to honor ourselves and we want to honor other people. We don't want to see pictures, and we don't take pictures of ourselves, and so that introduces like the elements of what pornography is first, right? And to kind of like and then engage. So part of that is also to engage the parents to talk to the children about it, because pornography has to do with sexuality, which is a very intimate topic, which is best handled by parents. And so going back to the question about how do we handle pornography, it's really about first understanding what is the family's value towards sexuality, how do we take care of ourselves, our body, and how do we respect other people's body, and knowing, teaching the children from young what are good pictures and bad pictures, and what to do when they encounter that. So many of the children, unfortunately, that are in my class, they tell me that, oh, certain things in games, it might pop up, in YouTube videos, it might pop up. And recently, I know of someone who's, fortunately, she herself, her phone number was used in the child's class chat rather than giving the child independent, and the child's phone is in the children's class chat, right? And this is like only like 11 years old. And then one of the children's phone got hacked. And then the hacker go and pump pornography in the class chat. So what do we do in those? So it's many of these cases, the children didn't search for it. it just comes at them, and for some children, they get traumatized. So it's for parents to really talk about, you know, if it happens, it's not your fault. You know, daddy and mommy still love you. There's nothing to be shameful about, you know, and most important thing is to tell us about it. So going back to all that we've discussed just now, the relationship coaching really is so important when it comes to issues like this, right? An emergency of sorts that come up. And sometimes the children will tell me that they are very shocked, they don't know what to do, and then they start to have, you know, nightmares about it. Yeah, so it's a very serious, but yet it's something that we all need to talk about with the kids, especially for those parents who are thinking about giving their children a phone. Before you give a phone, you need to have conversations about, do you know what is bad pictures and good pictures? Otherwise, once you give them, they actually don't know what is healthy and not healthy.
I so love what you say, right? Because in your languaging, right, it's like the feeling brain and the thinking brain, you know, instead of using team words. And the other thing is, like in exactly what you're saying, right? 90%, research has shown 90% of kids from 8 to 16 what have stumbled on or have been exposed to pornography. And a lot of parents may not have prepared them early enough. So and sometimes it's, how do I say, it's accidental, right? And exactly that phone had. So,
Yeah, I actually want to pick off from the accidental part because I worked with youths previously. Now, I work generally on content, not just pornography and violence. And there was one particular instance where this youth said, actually, my parents came down really hard on me when when I accidentally stumbled on something. And then the youth felt that was unfair because it was accident, and the parents didn't want to listen to him explain. And then from then onwards, he said, next time I encounter this, I don't want to tell my parents anymore. And you just shut off that relationship. So you know, it's good to, as what Carol said, you know, continually engage with the child on such matters. You know, very interestingly, you say what 90%, right? I heard this joke before, no? 90% say they watch porn before, the other 10% are lying.
True. So the question is, right, you brought up wonderfully, if your child were to tell you, I watch porn, or you stumble into, you know, the room and what, how? Because I think sometimes when parents explode, it reflects more of my own insecurity, my own guilt and shame about this topic, and then I project it on the child and make the child feel like a loser, you know? Yeah, so
yeah,
how
so like I said, you know, at some age, it's quite difficult to talk about such issues. So you just probably have to say, this is not for you, this content is not for you and all that. But as the child grows older and understand a little bit about sexuality and things like that, then you're better able to explain it. Now, in those cases where the child, there are few ways that the child can go into it now. One is accidentally stumble, okay? The other one is out of curiosity, want to go and find, okay? The other one is not them, their friends send them and all that. I think in all this, you just need to process with the child to open up that comms channel with the child and not shut it off by just, you know, scolding the child and all that. So that has been my experience when I interact with some of the youths on such matters.
Wonderful.
If I could jump in, right? Many parents ask me, but I'm not sure how early I should be broaching this, right? Because you mentioned about curiosity. If I say it first, then would my child be curious? My response is usually that, you know, it's actually 100%, right? They will encounter it sooner or later. I don't think there's any way realistically in this day and age that we can totally block it. So it's a matter of when. So how do you prepare your child for the when it comes? Do you want your child to stumble upon it and then figure out and have those emotions on himself? Or do we want to be the first person to say that, hey, you know, you're going to be more independent, you might see some things, what do we do? And the analogy I give is like, it's a fire drill in school, right? You know, before the fire happens, there will be a fire drill in school. If something happens, this is what you do. So you can be more systematic, you don't have to be scared if the emergency happens. Same with pornography or any other inappropriate content, right? That if something happens, what can you do, right? Depending on the age of the child, you could like shut your eyes, tell daddy and mommy, you know, and figure out, you know, and distract yourself and things like that. So you can actually talk some of these things through. And my encouragement to parents is actually we can be the first one to talk about and prepare our children for it. Talk about sexuality, healthy sexuality based on your family values. Early, it can be early even in the preschool years, because our children actually learn sexuality when they're 11 at P5. They learn pornography actually at P6. It's part of the character and citizenship education. So for those who might have older siblings, they might be actually exposed to more things. You might then want to like talk about it even earlier. So it's really parents being the first one to broach this topic is I feel that it's more effective than them stumbling upon it, you know, get shocked or get traumatized or don't know what to do. Whereas if you do the fire drill with them, right? If it's something happen, this is what we do, we're going to talk about it, and then make sure that we are the safe space for the kids to come back to and process some of the things that we have been talking about. Processing is so important. Yeah.
I agree with you, because you know this thing, the forbidden fruit is always sweeter, or you know, so I would rather, right? So even from 3 years old, my daughter, 12 years ago when she was 3, saw this, you know, this Ariel and Jasmine kissing. So even at that age, right, I decided, hey, I'm going to start processing with them. And teachable moments are not just when they're holding the phone or the screen, right? It's literally when we open the door. Do you open the door for someone behind you? You know, it's where we can teach values like respect or honor, right? Which I think is so critical. Yeah. So now I want to shift the conversation, right, to really thriving online, because we are in this digital world. And the joke, right, when you're younger, the screen bigger. And then when you become older, the screen becomes smaller, and then all our posture all gets impacted, right? So how do we teach our children, G, to anchor their sense of self such that they are less impacted by social media comparisons and more from within?
I think there are many factors with regards to social media comparison. So, you know, my kids, they are on social media, but they also know that social media, whatever you see on social media is audience-centric. It's not really what's happening in real life. I mean, they know for themselves when I post, it's only certain types of things and it's not others and all that. So I bring that across to them as well. Now, obviously, self-worth needs to start from a very young age. You need to always affirm them. You need to, for me, I tell them that daddy always loves you. You can come to me and things like that. You are special, okay? One of the things is having a big family, you tend to compare with siblings and all that. I'll share with them, you know, you are unique and stuff like that. So I think that's the way that I've always been treating the kids, and then they understand it, and they know what social media is all about. So they know that whatever is posted to them may not be real and things like that. I think that helps in that journey also.
I love what you say. So what you're saying is when we daily already top up their tank and they are anchored on their self-identity, their worth is not tied to any accomplishment or any need to boast or to get external validation, that builds up very secure people, little adults, I would call that.
But I want to bring this up because this what she was saying, I think is very important, because I have parents that the parent and child relationship gets so strained when I sit down with the parent and ask, hey, what are the good things that you see in your child? Some of them couldn't, even one thing. And that to me was very, very scary, because then what happens to that child is that's all they're getting, that I'm not good. You know, even though sometimes the parents may not say it up front, but the general sense is I'm not good at all. Yeah, and I think that can be quite detrimental to a person, not even just a youth, any person. If I have nothing to say about a single person, that person wouldn't want to be with me, right? So I think that part is so important, to be affirming and to really call out. I think it's call out the gifts and the good things in a person for the child to have that security. So if you talk about that, I say it starts with real life. It's not just the screen. If they're very secure in real life, once they're on screen, they know who they are. They won't be swayed so easily.
I love what you're saying, right? Because and sometimes it's our Asian culture, right? Yes. Don't praise you, if not your head big, you float in the sky. But I think all that erroneous kind of mentality is precisely why we rob our children of boasting even, or stepping into their gifts and their strengths and being proud of it, you know, and using it to serve humanity. Yes. Right?
Yeah, using it to serve humanity through screens. I think when we build them up well on the core from the inside out, they can figure out how can they use screens to encourage someone else to create content that's positive. You know, to call out the good in other people online. I think when we get more of our young people do it, then perhaps the online world will be less toxic and more positive for their generation.
Yeah, and it really starts from home, right? Because I think even as you share that, right, it's quite sad, you know. Tell me 3 good things about your own child. Must think so low. And then I can imagine, because if that is it, trust me, the bad things, a lot, you know, it would be a whole long list. And I am sending those messages to you, right? So how do we redeem it? So for example, in the gaming culture, how do we encourage them to transfer this real REEL skills into REAL life, you know, whether of strategy or perseverance?
What we usually do is for the young people, they cannot correlate. That means what is happening in the digital, right? When we see them, we say, hey, you're very good strategist. We say, is it, man? You know, when we see them play, we can tell.
There's a disconnect
Yeah,
for them. Why?
but then in real life, they say they can't. They just kind of completely shut in that space. So it is to help them to say, hey, you know, this place, you can use the same skill. Now, this is, it should match. You know, like you see here, right? You see here, you see them as two different worlds. But if we help them say, this is similar to this is similar to this, try it the same way. You make decision here. Can you try making decision this space? And then sometimes they will try for a while. Then after that, they get it.
Wonderful.
Yeah, so it's a lot of time is the disconnect, because I think they're still young. They don't have the experience of taking a step back and looking at two spaces and say they're similar. Yeah, so I think that's the part where it's missing for a lot of them. So with parents, sometimes we will sit down and with the parent, do you know that your son is so good in the game? That's why he's in the charts. And why is he so good? We really tell the parents, we say, why is he so good? And now it is, how do you call off these things that he's exhibiting in the digital space into real life? It can be, but it does need some guidance, because they don't have the experience yet, life experience to correlate.
Yeah, it's very difficult for parents when that so good in gaming doesn't translate to so good in the academics. I think that is the huge disconnect.
Yes.
And from parents' perspective, if you are not doing good academically, how can I do to support you? Because what is your next educational pathway?
Yeah.
I think that's the disconnect. Sometimes it causes refusal for the kids because they are so good in it. You know, there's no meaning to do something that I'm not
they
good
cannot
at.
connect. They say, why do I want to spend time here?
Yeah. So
And I think the other thing that I want to point out too, right, is I think the reason why so many kids seek solace in the real world, like the digital world, is because they feel inwardly, I may not say it out, that I'm a failure in my parents' eyes. I think the most important, right, is it really doesn't matter what the world thinks, but I think the most important people, and often parents tend to forget, we are actually our children's hero and heroines, and yet we forget them, which also means our harsh words are amplified, and likewise our positive affirmations are exaggerated as it goes into their ears. So I think instead of like cutting them and making them feel like a loser in real life, is to encourage them. And thank you for sharing that a lot of them haven't yet drawn the connection. And I think it's because from the parents' point of view, that one also cannot earn you any money in time to come. But I think parents are forgetting that in this VUCA world that we're growing up in, YouTubers are multi-millionaires. A 9-year-old YouTuber richer than all of us combined, right? At 12 million a year. And yes, that may just be one person, but I think the world is really changing. There are so many ways of making money: entrepreneurship, creativity, curiosity. Perseverance, right? If we begin to allow our children to develop these muscles, whether through game or in real life, I think that is what sets them up for success, not a piece of paper. So I think that's critical to remind ourselves, parents, that we are living in a different landscape. It's no longer just wearing that square hat, right? That may have served our generation, but may no longer be relevant. And Carol, I want to ask you, I think one of the realities that parents struggle with is time. You know, my scarcest resource is time. So I think it has shifted, right? When we were younger, maybe the scarcest resource was more money. So our parents went out to earn money. But in today's time, the scarcest resource is really time. I got no time, even for myself. Now you want me to have conversation? You know, how do we help? How do we support parents in creating that time for our children, with our children?
I think it's about priorities. What is our priority in life? In creating that space that we need to have with our children, I think it's really a mindset shift on what is important. You know, every day with our children, it is so precious because our children grow up in the blink of an eye. I mean, my children is like, how one blink, 19 years old already. Where did my days go? You know, the days are long, but the years are the days are long, but the years are short.
Yes.
And so how do we find time in a very busy life. And as the children grow older, they get busy too, actually. And so certain habits in the family may be useful. So we could think about, I mean, now it's the end of 2021. We can think about, how have your 2021 been? How can you leverage on other daily moments? Maybe like meal time, dinner time. Can everybody come back for dinner? If not every day, could it be a few times a week? Or if not even the weekdays, maybe can the weekend be dedicate maybe Sunday or Saturday, to connect and bond? Or can it be once a month? I mean, if we want to be intentional about it, we do need to make space. We do need to make space in our own scheduling and help our children to make space and our spouse to make space, and hopefully this space is a common space. Otherwise, you free, I'm not free. I free, my daughter not free. And I think it's the intentionality of the family, right? To come together and say that, hey, this is important. That each of us feeling our love tank together is important. Without the intentionality, I really think that is very difficult. Right? We need to mark out in our calendar, block out so that nobody can book my time, right? And that takes discipline, though. It's not so easy
initially, but after it becomes a habit, it becomes a no-brainer.
Exactly. Actually, that's what I want to say. Priorities, intentionality, and I think this should start young also, because once you have that habit, it's very easy, because everybody will prioritize around the family time. They put that as sacred or something like that. Correct. So this is something that we should start early as well.
Yeah.
I mean, if you haven't started, just start now, okay? And I believe that builds in a habit. Then at least they say, actually, I've done it before. I can set aside time. I can prioritize and things like that.
Yeah.
And then it'll go
when
on
it
well.
becomes a habit, the children will know, hey, naturally, I don't block my time for project discussion near dinner time. Or Sundays, I know it's family time. I will not have my project discussions on Sunday. So then you don't have to nag, because it has become naturalized in them.
And I think the other thing, right, is to make that time enjoyable, right? If it's a scolding session or a put me down session or a comparison session, I will avoid, But I think if it's a session where we get affirmed and we get involved in each other's life and we expand, I think that is something I would look forward to and sign up for.
Make it an attractive time for them. When I go there, I know that I can offload.
Yes. So in conclusion, right, if we can leave one actionable tip for our viewers, as a father, one of the struggles that a lot of moms have is
father in the mom's space.
I tell my kids no, and then my husband go. How any feedback? Like what?
Consistency lah. So I mean, actually, it's not just for fathers. My tips is fathers and mothers work together, and then journey with your child in the digital space.
Understand. Got it. Wonderful. So how do we ask fathers to work together with us? Because I think sometimes fathers may not be watching this, for example.
Really? Okay.
How could we, I mean, like from a father's point of view, how does it occur to you such that it seems the reality is in many households, mothers' boundaries tend to be smaller, fathers' boundaries tend to be broader. Am I right?
Okay. You are right from what I hear, but in my family, I think my boundaries are a little bit smaller, and my wife's typically a little bit more relaxed with things like that. I think it helps actually, because the kids hear both sides of the views and then come to a certain balance and a certain compromise in that way lah. So for example, I was very resistant about getting a computer game, and then my wife would say it's okay, we can, and then finally we came to a compromise and then got it, but I will put in the processes on how to develop the usage from then on. So I control the parental controls and things like that. I have certain rules regards to usage and all that, and then I'll slowly release it. So both sides, I think, does help. I mean, differing views, and then we come to a compromise and work something out.
I love what you say about like really sitting down together. So it's not one individual carrying out their plan, their game plan for the entire family, right? But everyone taking their ownership and being a part of that family plan. Yeah. And thank you, G.
No worries.
Pauline, I want to ask you, what's one tip you want to leave parents who are struggling with their kids who are gaming with?
I think it is to have conversations, neutral conversations, to really find out what they're doing. Let them talk. A lot of times they feel that they don't have space to say what they want to say. So when I meet them, right, they end up offloading to me. Yeah, and they don't have an adult at home where, really listen and process through. Because I will just sit down and listen the whole chunk of thing they want to say. Then I'll say, oh, but you say right, means, I'm trying to see where they feel, because sometimes they are not aware. Self-awareness, they're still developing.
Teenagers, because this is going to be hearing from the horse's mouth, literally, our teenagers' perspective. See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.